I have an awesome example of 1983 OS technology here. It's an OS FS61 four-stroke engine. I just got this off of eBay, just arrived today. I was going to do a box to the bench review of it, but I won't be able to do that till Saturday, so I'm going to go ahead and just take an initial inspection of it now. It came complete with a very tattered and old box. But one of the things I think is interesting when you get these old boxes is if you look at the price tag on it. Back in the day, whenever it was purchased, I don't know when it was listed at $249.99. So I got this tattered old box, the engine, and inside the box came with a set of reprinted instructions, which is always nice. I mean, I can find them online. But it has an extra shim, an O-ring, which I can only assume might be for the carb. It had an extension here for the needle valve, a couple other push rod O-rings it looks like, and a ring, which is kind of a nice thing. Ring looks brand new, doesn't look like it's ever been used. So the engine overall is in excellent shape. It's got what I would consider the proper compression for this engine. Excuse me. It looks like a very low time engine. There's some marks on the mounting lugs here, but overall, I mean, this thing looks quite nice. The only thing of note that I've kind of seen on it that is a little disconcerting is the two screws that hold the carburetor on. They're the only Phillips screws on here, and of course these Japanese screws are very notorious for being very soft metal, so I'm going to have to take extreme care in trying to remove those because those heads are already pretty boogered up, and I'll probably end up replacing them. But this usually would come with a set of tools, feeler gauge, wrench, and a pressure adapter that goes on the exhaust. Those items didn't come with the engine, but for the price I paid for this engine, which was $52, I think I got a pretty good deal. So I'm going to get right to seeing if we can take a quick look inside this engine. So that screw came out, and that one's coming out. So since these screws are in bad shape, I will be replacing them. I don't have anything on hand, but I definitely will be replacing those. I don't want to have boogered up fasteners on my engine. Let's take this intake manifold off. Be interesting to see if there's a gasket here. I've seen a lot of mixed things with OS engines. Sometimes there's a gasket, sometimes there isn't. Hi, Chloe. We'll find out shortly if this one has a gasket or not. And yes, it does have a gasket, and it looks like it's in decent shape. I'm going to leave it right there. So the carb on this thing is an air bleed carb. Hi, Chloe. And it moves freely. I didn't test to see what the needle valve setting is. Let's do that. So 1, 2, 3. It was open 3 full turns. Get a wrench here and take this exhaust header off. Oops, I need the right size. It's 10. I typically don't run these old OS engines with a pressure adapter anyway, unless my airplane my fuel tank position require it. Wow. Look inside there. It looks completely dry, first of all, and quite pristine, really. It's interesting. Let's take off this back plate and see if this engine's been run. You know, if it's been run, I'm not even seeing any real residue on the exhaust valve stem at all when I look in here. So this is going to be interesting because this could perhaps be an engine that's never really even been run before. I mean, honestly, it doesn't smell like glow fuel residue at all. gasket, nice gasket. Holy crap. You're not going to believe this. I'm not sure this engine's ever been run. Look at that. Look at how pristine that is. Wow, I really did not expect that. I'm smelling the inside of the crankcase here, and quite honestly, I don't smell, I smell no exhaust fuel residue whatsoever. What I'm smelling and feeling feels like OS machine tooling oil. I think I have a pristine, never run engine here, which is pretty damn unbelievable considering when this was sold, it was sold for $250 and I paid $52 for it. This is quite exciting. Just to continue this, let's take the head off and look at the top of this piston, which I can almost guarantee is going to be just as pristine as what I'm seeing inside here. I'll take a look at that glow plug too. I don't know if it's the original or not, but it will tell me if it's ever been lit. And if this has never been run, then that sure changes the way I was going to go about running the thing. And this is a good thing that I opened this up, because if I'd assumed that it was a used engine, I would have run it like a used engine and not done a break-in procedure on it. So there's a head shim. Wow, that thing's thick. Just take these off real quick. Check this out. It looks brand new. I mean, that literally looks brand new. There's not a hint of residue anywhere on that. Now, what's interesting to note here is that I've never seen this on an OS piston, on a 4-stroke piston, but there's an arrow that's actually pointing towards the exhaust side of the engine. Excuse me. I think that's just kind of odd, because it could be that there's a different cutout in the piston, and it looks like that's the case. So this is an instance where the piston is cut out differently, so there is an orientation with the piston. So that's something that I would have to be really careful of if I were going to take it down any further. Okay, so that's that. Let's just take a look at the exhaust. I'm sorry, the inside of the head and the exhaust intake valve. Look at that. I don't think this has ever been run at all. I don't see a slightest hint of carbon deposit there. I mean, I see a little discoloration of the head. I'm not sure what would cause that in the combustion chamber, but it doesn't look like it's from combustion. It's not. It's kind of splotchy. It's not an even thing like if it was residue from being run. This is a new engine. I am absolutely convinced that this engine has never been run, which is pretty darn unbelievable. And the glow plug actually kind of, this glow plug, I mean, could have been changed out anyway. It's no big deal, but that nice starter's dead. Yeah, the glow plug's lighting up. It doesn't look like it's ever been used. I think I got a dead nice starter there. So I'm going to deem this engine as brand new, which, like I said, is going to completely change the way I go to run this thing now, because now I'm going to actually run it like it needs to be broken in. The only other thing I thought was odd about this was that the original prop nut must have been gone, lost somehow, because obviously this nice shiny nut is not an OS standard nut. I'm not probably going to replace it or worry about that because it works just fine, but it is interesting to note. And this engine also incorporates a Woodruff key, which I just let fall out, which denotes bottom dead center. So when that Woodruff key, let me take this all the way off here. When that Woodruff key nut or housing cutout is up, your piston's at bottom dead center. Likewise, when it's on the bottom, it's at top dead center. So that's kind of a cool thing. And it's nice to know that this has a Woodruff key and I better not lose it. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up the initial look inside of this engine, which I have just discovered is a brand new engine that's never been run, which is quite amazing.